Flow is embracing movement forward, championing change, creating miracles. Miracles come out of change, not doing the same thing over and over again, which is lack of effort, which is not doing the work, which is not committing ourselves to the process. The good thing about coming out to a wonderful song is it feels like I got the standing ovation, so thank you. That was powerful. What an entrance I must have made. Okay, I have like a 40-minute talk I'm going to try to do in less than that. And I've also had a little bit of caffeinated tea, so I'm going to be flying. So everyone just buckle in your seatbelt. Let's see, everyone buckle in. Come on, we're going to be interactive here. We're buckling in, and we're going along for this ride. Yes, the 5-point harness, the whole thing. And we're going to rock along here. So normally I talk a lot about who I am, but that gets boring to me. But I am the executive director of Unity Worldwide Ministries, which is the organization that supports all the ministries like we're sitting in here, and the leadership of those ministries, the licensed Unity teachers, the ministers, youth and family leaders. That is exactly what we do, and that's our purpose for existence. So that is why I am here. I go out and I travel, I visit with ministries, I see what's going on, what their struggles are, what their successes are, and come back with solutions at the home office that we can work on to try to help you all thrive and grow and succeed. So normally I go a little bit more into the specifics of that, but I'm going to just skip this a little bit. We could talk about this in the Q&A afterwards if you want to hear more about myself and the two organizations that serve Unity. But I want to get right to it here with this question, which is, why am I here? And I'm asking that question not as Shad, but I'm asking you to ask that question of yourself, of why am I here? And not so big as to think, why am I on this planet or in this existence? But why am I here sitting in this particular chair on this particular morning? What brought me here? What is the purpose of me being here? Well, when we look into that question, oftentimes as we poll different people and we talk to people, as my wife and I travel to different ministries, quite often you find it's because people are here because of a very large change in their life. Sometimes they've just had a kid and they're looking for a spiritual community to help raise that child in, or they had a loss of a family member or a loved one, and they're seeking some hope and some support, or might have been a financial loss, might have been divorce. Many times there's a big life change that brings a person to a unity, and that's why they initially came here. But eventually we have to ask ourselves, where am I going? And that's really the question I want to address today. Many of us probably could think back and say, yeah, this is why I'm here, this is what brought me here, someone invited me, or I went out seeking, or I had an inner calling and I found myself here. But are we asking ourselves, where are we going, right? It's not just to check a box that I came every Sunday, and if I get 52 Sundays, I get a prize at the end of the year or something like that. There should be a purpose why we're coming. There should be a direction we're heading, and there should be something we're trying to accomplish. So in the back of our minds, we should have this question, where am I going, just germinating as we go through this process. So when we think about where we're going, we often talk about the spiritual path. And on that spiritual path, we talk about God as at the other end, or self-realization, or enlightenment, or spiritual unfoldment, whatever the term is you use, that there is this thing we're going to, and there's this path between us and this thing. That's how we often see this journey. We talk about our spiritual path. Here I am, it's the state of consciousness I currently am, and that's where I would like to be. But in reality, the spiritual path is a little bit more like this. There are twists and turns. It can be ugly and messy. We can think we're progressing, but we're actually falling back a little bit. And then we look at it and we say, what happened? I thought I was almost there. Now I'm yelling at people in the street. We're all over the map sometimes in this process. So we know it's not a linear, here I am going to there. It's kind of cyclical, and it's all over the place. But the issue is we still have this concept that it is out there, it's over there, it's something I'm journeying towards, it's something that's later in time that I'm going to achieve. It'll be maybe in 20, 30 years, and in some instances we say it might even be 4, 5, 6 lifetimes away, or maybe even 1,000 lifetimes away. We put this concept as where I'm trying to go is out there, over there, some distant place in time. But the reality of the spiritual path is really more like a 2-lane road. And sometimes I refer to it as God or bliss or enlightenment, but that experience of God or that experience of enlightenment is bliss. we really would like to be living in bliss. Anybody else want to live in bliss? 70% of you do. The other 30%, I'm not sure. You really like the drama and the struggle, I guess. That's fine. That's what makes church interesting. Right? But really, I'd like to think about a two-lane road. Bliss is sitting right next to us. It is not something that's sitting at a distant future, distant time. It's actually sitting right next to us. And there's an opportunity that we can simply step into bliss. We don't have to go very far at all, and I'm going to prove it to you. Has anyone in this room, for even just a fraction of a second, felt bliss? Maybe you lost yourself in a hobby, or in a moment when your child was born, or you were in meditation and you just touched it. So you didn't have to travel to some distant place. It didn't take some long period of time. For a fraction of a second, or maybe in a minute, however long it lasted for you, you were there. So that is proof that it's not sitting far away. It's actually sitting right here in this moment. But for some reason, we sit most of our life in the lane of struggle. And people will get down on me and say, Shad, life's wonderful. I say, yeah, but compared to bliss, life is ultimately struggle. And the Buddha would talk about this, that life is suffering. When you're relating it to bliss, like, yeah, life can be pretty good, but when you're looking at bliss, life is actually suffering. So why do we spend most of our time in the lane of struggle? Well, we know that there's an opportunity of bliss. If we've ever even touched it for a split second, we know that opportunity is there, it's not far off. But yet, why do we constantly sit in the lane of struggle? Well, we're built in a system and a culture and a media designed for struggle. We are programmed from the moment we are born by the society, by our culture, to struggle, to constantly go after something that you don't already have. Whether it be a degree, whether it be a new car, whether it be a better relationship, whether it be a better financial situation or a job, we are being programmed that your enjoyment is something that you have to strive towards. Never that it's something that's right here in this present moment. We're never taught to strip away all those chaotic distractions and to recognize what we already have and enjoy and love and bliss in what we already have. We are programmed from the time we are born to constantly chase something and to never have an opportunity to just enjoy what we have. Because if we did do that, more of us would be experiencing bliss on a regular, constant, unchanging basis. But we'd also be buying less stuff and trying to get less degrees and bothering with all the nonsense that the world's trying to sell us on a day-to-day basis. So it's important to recognize that our society is built on the lane of struggle, and it's built on keeping you in the lane of struggle. So I just want to establish that point. So as we tune into the news day in and day out, it's trying to keep you in the lane of struggle. As we read the next book that talks about the romance that we just didn't have or the financial things we could have or all that, it's designed to keep you in the lane of struggle. But we need to remember the opportunity for bliss is not so distant and far away. It's actually right here, right now, in this moment. But we have to consciously choose to step into it, which then means we have to consciously choose to step out of what the world has designed for us, which is a very deep trench of struggle, which we dig deeper and deeper each day. We engage in struggle and drama and chaos and deciding that the world is out to get us, or the world is doomed, or it's all negative and everyone's going to hell in a handcart. But the fact is that bliss is just a choice away. But each and every day we make thousands and thousands of micro choices to stay in struggle. I don't like that person's hat. My car's not good enough. My job's not good enough. My body's not thin enough. My mind's not fast enough. I'm not young enough. All throughout the day, we're making these conscious little choices to struggle. Struggle, 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 struggle. So the thousands of choices we make throughout the day to constantly struggle, how often we stop to make a choice for bliss? Start watching your mind, and you'll see very rarely do we actually do that. So is it possible there's actually unequal access to God? I was actually challenged. I was talking about this concept with a group of people, and one of my sisters of color came out of the congregation to me afterwards and said, That's an unfair perspective because not everyone has equal access to bliss. And I had to sit with that, and I actually enjoy when people call me out on my own blind spots because I'm constantly trying to fix them, and I've got plenty of them. Anyone else have blind spots? It's the same 70%. What are the other 30% doing here? Okay. Maybe we should have a separate service for that 30%. We can talk about things we actually need to work on. And so I had to sit with this, and I had to think, is it possible there is unequal access to God? Is it possible that the bliss is actually sitting further away for some people? And I had to take this into meditation. I had to try to move past my own biases to see if this is actually possible in my own perspective. And I had to realize that, in fact, it is possible that for some of us, bliss is seemingly or actually is more distant from where we are standing. And I had to think about it. I said, you know what, in fact, we can lay bricks in the road between us and bliss. With all the negative judgments, all the things we do, even the parental upbringing that entrenches some horrific thoughts and consciousness happening in us, we can lay bricks in between us and bliss, making it harder and harder to step into bliss. And that society keeps telling us to buy that, get that, do that. They're laying bricks now in between us and bliss. And now if you think, well, if society was actually built for people that look like me, a white, male, affluent, cisgender, heterosexual man, I'm sitting here going, well, yeah, think of the advantage I have, where some people are born into a world where those bricks have already been put there and haven't even had a chance to do the opportunities that I've had, which make it easier for me to step into bliss over someone else. And I had to sit with that. And I said, you know what? I need to have a reference in my own life to understand how this unfolds. And it came to meditation and the pesky fly. Has anyone ever tried to meditate outside, but nature is not going to allow it? I was sitting by this beautiful body of water. It was this great setting. Everything was perfect. I sat down. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to connect with nature. And this fly was hell-bent on getting inside my body. Through my nose, into my mouth, in my ear. I don't know what its goal was, but it apparently wanted to get inside my body and study my brain. So I could not meditate for the life of me. It was so distracting. And in that moment, and analyzing that moment actually in hindsight, I realized in that moment that fly was more powerful than God. It had more of my attention than God. I could not do the process of connecting deep within because I was so distracted by this fly. A tiny little fly had put a barrier in between me and God. And that really didn't take much. And then I had to think, imagine the societal pressures put on various groups of people in our culture, in our world, because of the situation, because of their gender identity, because of how they represent in skin color, all the different things that our society puts pressures on people. I'm distracted by a little fly. You can imagine what the situation creates in there, where we're trying to feed our children and we don't have enough to feed them. We don't have enough financial income to sustain our own children. And we're working. Do we have time then to meditate, to do that practice? Society's put these very large flies in the way of that process. So I sat with that and I said, this is an unfair world. You think about some people have an infinity pool to do yoga in. And some people don't have any food to feed their children. And some have a private meditation studio to do their meditation practice. And some are sitting in a hut that don't have anything but dung to cook the food that they have, if they even have food. So how is this fair? How is this a fair system? I thought bliss was sitting right here. I thought it was an equal opportunity for everyone to step into bliss, but in fact, I'm realizing bliss might be much further away for some people. That wall might be a lot thicker for some people, making it a lot more difficult to make that connection. Circumstances in life can make it more difficult to connect with God. I had to come to that conclusion. It was the only fair conclusion I could come to challenge my own embedded biases. But those circumstances don't make God any less present. I had to think into that. I had to say, that opportunity for bliss, I know, isn't any further away from anybody else. I had to accept that. God is everywhere present. Do we agree on that? You cannot push God away. That's not possible. You cannot make God go any further away from any single person. So what is happening? Well, I come to mind is the great equalizer on the spiritual path. My mind was distracted by the fly. God was no further away in that moment in time. In fact, God was the fly in that moment in time. But my mind was distracted by the annoyance of the fly instead of the representation of God as the fly. So I continued my journey down this path trying to discover how this process really unfolds. And this wasn't a long time ago. This is unfolding this year. This is how this stuff works. And someone said, I think Viktor Frankl is going to help you. And I thought back to the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And you look at the individuals in the concentration camps, some of the worst, most oppressive environments that have ever taken place on this planet. Not the worst, there's been other very oppressive environments, but a good representation of some of the most oppressive environments on this planet. And we here have a survival of one of those environments, and he says, even though conditions such as lack of sleep, insufficient food, and various mental stresses may suggest that the inmates were bound to react in certain ways, in the final analysis, it becomes clear that the sort of person the prisoner became was the result of an inner decision, and not the result of camp influences alone. Fundamentally, then, anyone can, under such circumstances, decide what shall become of them mentally and spiritually. So this was challenging to me. I was thinking about this. Is there equal, fair access to bliss, to God and the divine? So let me ask you this. Do you know, personally or of someone, that seemingly has everything the world could possibly give them, but yet they just don't seem to have a connection to God? Let me see a hand if anyone knows anybody like a celebrity, anything. Same 70%. What is... Just kidding. All right, how about this? How about someone who's seemingly been in an oppressive environment, has been pushed down by the world, had possibly a horrible upbringing as we see it in our society, but yet they seem very connected to God? Anyone know or heard of anyone like that? So knowing that, we would have to conclude that the circumstances themselves do not dictate whether God is close or not, whether bliss is attainable or not. If someone can come up in a very oppressive environment and still be very close to God, and someone can grow up in a very affluent environment where every single thing seems to be handed to them, but yet still be distant from God, we cannot correlate those two things to bliss or God. Because mind is ultimately the great equalizer, and they make the choice, mentally or spiritually, what the outcome is going to be. Does anyone know what this statement is? We create our life experiences through our way of thinking. Hey, pretty good. Oftentimes, it's only the minister that knows what that is. And I say that, and the place just goes quiet, and the minister goes, it's principle number 3. I'm like, I saw you say that. Yes, very good. Is everyone familiar with our 5 basic unity principles? Okay, that's reassuring. Has anyone ever heard of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore? Okay. Go through some ministries and it's just dead silence at that point. I get really, really worried. These are our 5 basic unity principles. I'm not going to read them all because you probably already know them if you're familiar with them, but I'm going to give you a realization I had around them. I was sitting in prayer and meditation around this idea of what is our journey in unity? What is our path in unity? Where are we going in unity? What are we trying to accomplish in unity? And much of it spawned from a conversation I had with a young man who came to my ministry in Unity of Boulder. Was very excited about the ministry, but after several weeks he said, Shad, what am I doing here? He was asking those questions I started off this talk with. What am I doing here? I said, well, you're coming to church. I assume you drove here. You want to have an experience. He's like, but why am I still here? Where am I going? What is my next step? He said, I'm here and no one has told me what's the next class to take and what class do I take after that and how do I become a leader of such and such and who am I looking up to? Who has accomplished what Unity has to offer so I can look at them and go, that's where I want to be. And they can mentor me and I can talk to him. He's like, where's my path in Unity? And I said, that's a fantastic question. I don't know. He said, I know you offer classes, but no one told me when I take each one and how does one lead in the other and where are we going? So I was sitting in this idea at Unity Village, meditating and praying, and what came to me was flip it upside down. That's what came to me in meditation. I was thinking of 5 basic unity principles, and what came to me was flip it upside down. and you have your spiritual path. Step 1, knowledge of these spiritual principles is not enough. We must live them. Step 1 is a commitment to do the work that you're about to be handed. If you're not going to commit to the work, forget all the rest of the steps. If you're just going to dabble in it, just forget it. If you're not going to commit yourself wholeheartedly to this process, to all the classes, everything you're going to learn in Unity, it's just probably not going to work to you the benefit it could. You'll get some benefit, but if you really want to see what the path of Unity has to offer, you have to commit wholeheartedly to the process, and that is step 1. We've got to commit to the process, to the daily practice of doing this work if we actually want to see the benefits. Step 2. Step 2, there is power in affirmative prayer, and I add meditation and spiritual practice, which we believe increases our awareness of God. You're going to learn the tools for a daily practice. But you have to have first committed to doing that on a daily basis. You have to commit to the process. Now you're being handed the tools and the techniques and the practice to start grow yourself spiritually. But if you're not committed to it, back to stage 1, you're not going to get much out of it. Dabbling doesn't grow the individual. It's consistency and practice and systems that help us grow and evolve on that journey, that path. Next, we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. These practices are going to challenge your current way of thinking. They're going to challenge the thinking of the world. They're going to challenge the thinking of the individuals around you. You're going to start shifting the way you see everything. You're going to shift the way you listen to the news if you decide to listen to it at all at that point forward. You're going to shift the type of books you read, the type of movies you watch, the type of people you hang out with, the influences that are affecting your consciousness. You'll start to say, I don't want that anymore. I've got plenty of work with the garbage that's already in here. I don't need any more. That is number 3. Your thinking is going to start to shift and challenge everything you know about life. Not in a bad way. It's calling you towards bliss. But you're going to have to address what's happening in your consciousness and your way of thinking. 2, we are spiritual beings created in God's image. The Spirit of God lives within each person. Therefore, all people are inherently good. All people? Come on. Seriously? All people? With what's happening in the world, all people? Nah. This is why this is the second to last step, because this takes work. You are going to have to break down so many preconceived notions and judgments and biases and perceptions to get to that place, which is going to require commitment, which is going to require a daily practice, which is going to require completely shifting the way you think and see the world to get to that point. But you don't get to skip to that point. You're still seeing people as a problem, as the devil or Satan or whatever you want to see them as evil, because we haven't done these initial steps. Back to step 1, am I still committed to my practice? Step 2, am I still learning how to increase my practice? Step 3, am I changing the way I think and see the world? Well, if we could actually see God in all people and as inherently good, eventually we can get to the place where God is the source and creator of all. There is no enduring power. God is good and present everywhere. If all you saw was God, what do you think your life would be like? If you could get to a place that all you saw and experienced was God, all there could be would be bliss. The fly on my face would be bliss. The politician that formerly drove me nuts every time I heard their voice would be bliss. Because all I would be hearing is the voice of God. Now, does anyone feel like that seems somewhat distant from where you are? Step 1, committing ourselves wholeheartedly to this process. We are not going to get to bliss if we think we get to skip ahead in line. So I'm just going to work on my thinking once in a while. This afternoon, I'm just going to complain to everyone I can find about the heat. But surely my life will be blissful when I'm done with that. It really is small decisions of, I'm going to stop complaining about this, and tomorrow I'm going to add on top of that, I'm going to stop complaining about this. And the next day after that, I'm going to stop judging these people. And the next day after that, I'm going to stop judging this entire group of people just because they're on one banner that has a political name on it, or ideology, or whatever it is. So where am I going in unity? Well, we do have a trajectory, but a lot of it is on the individual because we don't come into your life and say, you've got to do this. But there is a path to growth, to mastery, to evolution. One of the issues we've recognized in unity, though, in leadership, as we've traveled around, and even the leadership at local ministries themselves, is that our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, set a very high spiritual bar for us. They were talking about the last step, seeing God in all things. And they talked about it over and over again in so many various ways. They set this incredibly high spiritual bar for us. But what we did after they passed on from this plane is we started lowering that bar to a level that seemed a little bit more attainable to us. And we started talking a lot about prosperity and things I can get for me and how can I manifest more for me and my life and the things I want. And did this sermon meet my expectations? Was the temperature what I expected it to be in that room? Was the coffee the exact flavor I like to have when I drink coffee in fellowship? Did they have the cookies out I like to have in fellowship? It became about me. But they set this incredibly high spiritual bar where it's all God. What do I have to complain about if it's all God? Are we working towards that place? Or if we lowered the bar to it became about my personal, selfish spiritual experience, and we forgot about those around us that are being oppressed and pushed down by society, and we said, that's their deal, that's their karma, I'm just working on me. Well, let's talk about what they actually expected for us 100 years later. Charles Fillmore said, out of the air we may manufacture the things we eat and wear. This is not a flight of fancy. It is not an assumption of theoretical metaphysics that we may be able to make our food and clothing from the air, but a logical conclusion that follows the understanding of God as the omnipresent source of all that appears. If there is only God, would I have any struggle in manifesting something to wear? Would I have any concern about what I'm wearing, first of all? If there is only God, life is incredibly different. Myrtle said, there is no limit to the so-called miracles that can be formed by those who consecrate themselves wholly to do the will and the work of Christ. Consecrate themselves wholly. What is she talking about? First step on the path. But if you have not consecrated yourself wholly, don't expect the results we've been talking about. Has anyone known anyone or themselves had a miraculous healing? Thank you. If anyone has had a miracle in their life, they've proven that anyone can live with constant miracles in their life. When one person pierces the veil and sees the other side of bliss, you can't close that gap. It now has become a possibility and actually a reality for everyone. She has miracle in quotes, as my perception is that she's saying, what you're calling miracles was supposed to be your average day. You're saying miracles, I'm saying this is what I did this morning when I woke up. Not that impressive. Healing the body should not be that impressive. It should be what we do at any point in time. So if we can pierce the veil, if anyone can pierce the veil, if we can experience bliss for any point in time, for any amount of time, we've proven to ourselves and others that it is present, it is available at all times for all of us. The Christ in you is God as you in action. Christ calls you forward. We have become inactive in unity for many decades, thinking about ourselves and our growth and our own little ministry, but there is a whole world out there. There's actually 600 unity ministries out there around the world. How many people knew that? 600 ministries like this, probably at this exact moment in time, are gathering like this all over the world and growing as I see it. Stagnation is resisting movement forward, resisting change, resisting miracles. The world is changing. The world is calling us forward. The world is calling us to flow. But if we resist that, we're resisting miracles. Flow is embracing movement forward, championing change, creating miracles. Miracles come out of change, not doing the same thing over and over again, which is lack of effort, which is not doing the work, which is not committing ourselves to the process. There's an opportunity for us to go from what is to step into what is possible and what is waiting for me. Bliss, God, divine, is right here, right now. The Christ in me is calling me to recognize, open to it, and flow with it. And that opportunity doesn't come thousands of years down the road or multiple lifetimes down the road. That opportunity is sitting here right now in my next decision of, do I accept and flow and bless those around me, or do I cause more conflict? That is the truth as I experience it. Thank you.